Hello, everybody. I'm Diane Brady. It's my pleasure to be here with Sister Nathalie Becquart, who is the first female Undersecretary in the Vatican's Synod of Bishops. Sister Nathalie, good to see you.
Thank you. Good evening. It's a pleasure to be with you.
So let me ask, first of all, you are based in France, and one of the things that fascinated me when you were appointed in 2021, a lot was made of the fact that you would be also the first woman to have a vote in the Synod. Is that to you the real power of the role that you currently have?
I would say it has been very symbolic, to be, because it's this position that before it was always a bishop, and the position gives you to be a member of the Synod of Bishops and to have a vote. But in our process for the Synod, the vote occurs at the end of the process when we have reached a consensus. So the most important is not so much the vote at the end, but the fact that you can be involved from the beginning and at all stages of the process. And what is very interesting now, that when I was appointed, in a way, it has opened the door, and I was the first one with this right of vote. But at the end, for the Synod Assembly we had in October, there were also many other women for the first time who were full member of the Synod. So I was not alone. And I was with 54 women who also voted like me, and also other lay people, men who were there.
Can I ask, I know that you have you've traveled around the world talking to a lot of Catholics, lay people, as well as, of course, nuns, bishops, etc. in the Catholic Church. What have you gleaned from this journey in terms of the messages that you're hearing from people with regard to their relationship with the Church, the Vatican, etc.?
Well, it's the first time in the church history that a synod is convoked. It's convoked by a pope for the whole church. So for all the baptized and even all people of goodwill who would like to contribute to the Catholic Church. And it has been very moving to see so many people in all continents who have said with this synod that has opened a process of listening and consulting all the baptized. So many people have said, it's the first time the church is asking my voice. Mm-hmm. And for many people, it was really the first time they could really speak up and give what they feel or express. And doing that, they realize that the church is not only the popes and the bishops or the priests. No, they realize that they have also an important role to play, and we are called to be church all together as baptized, as people of God. Everybody has a role. So this synod is really a process to become more and more a listening church and an inclusive church, a welcoming church. Yeah. And doing that, the fact that people felt, and many expressed that for the first time they felt very much listened to, it reinforced in a way their sense of belonging, and they realize that yes, they have to be protagonists.
It's a 2,000-year-old institution, of course, and I recall Vatican II in the 1960s was a very transformative moment for the Roman Catholic Church. Some people have talked about the need for a Vatican III. It does feel like we're at an interesting pivot point right now. Do you agree? And can you sort of tell us more about how you think the culture of the church is changing?
It's interesting that you speak about the Second Vatican Council that is ready for the church and give us a kind of roadmap. And, what we are doing now is really implementing the fruits of the Second Vatican Council. And the Synod of Bishops, where I am working now, has been instituted at the end of the Second Vatican Council by Pope Paul VI, as a way to continue the experience of the council and the spirit, and to have a consultative body of bishops for the Pope. And what we are doing now is ready to continue the reception of the Second Vatican Council and its implementation. I like very much to quote a theologian from Australia. His name is Orman Rush, and he says, synodality is the Second Vatican Council in a nutshell. And this synod is about synodality to become more and more a synodal church. That means to be the church with the vision of Vatican II that highlighted that, first of all, we are the church as people of God, journeying among all the people on the earth. What we have in common as baptized is more important than all our differences. And we can say that the Second Vatican Council, in a way, has put the first focus on our common vocation as baptized before all differences and vocations. And so, of course, there is a hierarchical dimension in the church, but it's, first of all, we are brothers and sisters in Christ. First of all, we are a community. But what is interesting, nowadays we are almost a little bit more than 60 years after the Second Vatican Council, and we haven't finished really to put into practice the beautiful document of the Council, because for many historical reasons, during 1,500 years before, we had a way to look at the church more as an institution, like a pyramid, in a very juridical way, and looking at the church as, a kind of perfect society with the Pope at the top, and the bishops and the priests and the lay people just as passive receivers of the teaching. And now it's about a new way to be church.
Sister Nathalie, I'm curious about your own journey. My mother always told me that the nuns were the feminists and the entrepreneurs of the Catholic Church. So I'm curious how you found your calling.
Interesting what you share, because before entering religious life, I studied in a business school in HEC in France. And I did a specialization and master in entrepreneurship. And after my studies, I went to Lebanon to give 1 year as a volunteer. And that's during this year in Lebanon that I began to discern a call for religious life, as I was also working and meeting nuns and religious in Lebanon. And I discovered, because my big question, like many young people, was, what is the meaning of life? What is truth? And I discovered it's really to give back what you receive, and what you have received is not for you, it is to serve. And through an experience also of prayer, I began to think of religious life as a possible life and a way to follow Christ and to serve the other. So I went back to France after this year as volunteer. I worked during 2 years in a marketing communication agency, and I continued to discern my call, and I met the Xavier Sister, so the community where I am now, and I discovered, yes, that could be a place for me. So I entered this community that is French religious order with the spirituality of Ignatius of Loyola. So we are close to the Jesuits. And then through my journey with the Xavier Sister, I have been mainly involved and doing ministry with young people in youth ministry in different ways, with students in universities, with young people from poor urban area, different ways. And then I was called to work at the Bishops' Conference of France as director of the National Office for Youth and for Vocation, where I was the first woman appointed as director of this office. Before, it has always been a priest. and serving at the Bishops' Conference during 10 years. I have been involved in the preparation of the Synod on Young People that was convoked by Pope Francis in 2018. That's how I began to be involved in a Synod of Bishops. I participated to this synod as a consultor, as observer, we can say. And following that, I had finished my term at the Bishops' Conference. I asked to have a kind of sabbatical time. I went to the United States to deepen my theological studies. So I did a specialization in Boston College in ecclesiology with a research on synodality. And what is interesting is I have discerned through all my journey that really the way to be church today is to be a synodal church, and that's a path for me to serve the church, to serve the others. And I discovered a kind of inner call to serve and promote synodality. So I did this research and I did this discernment with my general superior. And just after that, I received a call by Pope Francis to become first consultor for the Synod of Bishops. It's a little bit like being an expert at the service of the Synod of Bishops, but it's not a full-time position. And then Pope Francis appointed me as Undersecretary, so at the Vatican, in this General Secretariat for the Synod in February 2021. I never imagined that. My community is not in Rome, so I never imagined I will work at the Vatican. But you can see it's a kind of journey, step by step. I have been asked to come here, and I try to do my best.
Well, it's fascinating. Before I move on, I want to point out to people who don't know HEC or HEC. Was it Haute Études Commerciales? So it's I believe it's like the Harvard Business School, basically, of France.
A little bit.
Maybe a little bit. How did that experience and the experience you had, in the marketing sector, how did that impact your vocation or your approach to your role?
Well, I'm very grateful to have, studied in HEC and to have learned also project management, entrepreneurship, communication, because all these skills also help me in the work I have done in the church, especially with the young people, and also now, because when I mentioned at the Bishops' Conference, I was a director of a team of 20 people. I had to lead a big project like organizing World Youth Day for the French delegation. So it was, for instance, in Madrid, 45,000 young people from France, or a big project like a national pilgrimage for students. So having both, an experience in management, entrepreneurship, communication, and also my studies in theology, because I first studied theology in Paris, and then I did this specialization in Boston College in the US, and also all my spiritual formation, because I have been trained also as a spiritual director, leading also spiritual process. So, it's a combination, but it's true that what I have received an experience during my studies, and then also those job experience has really helped me. And what I try to do and to continue, is it's also the charism of my religious order is really to build to make links between people who are in the church, people who are far from the church, between different fields. And I think as a church, we have a lot to learn from the business world, the corporate world, or also the media, the NGO. And we have also to give. And it's a reciprocal mutual learning. So each time I am asked to have that kind of dialogue, I do it because I really think and I continue to learn from others. And also, very humbly as church, we can share our experience and inspire
Yeah.
others.
Let me ask you a question about just the perch that you occupy, being the first women in this role. What has been the reaction of your colleagues, especially those who are priests, etc.? Has it been a challenge to get them used to the idea of a woman being in a role that was formerly occupied by a priest or a bishop in some cases?
Well, I would say it depends. Well, I have received rather warm welcome, but it's true that, in every kind of organization, when you have something new, when you have change, it's not so easy. So it's also not only to be the first woman here, but most of the women in leadership at the Vatican, in fact, for instance, they are Italian. Many of them have been working during many years in the Roman Curia at the Vatican. So I'm a woman, but I'm also coming from France, from a background. So it's learning to work together with different culture, different styles. So it's a journey. But and as you mentioned, the Vatican is a very old institution, and that has been shaped also in a very hierarchical way. So now to become more synodal, as with this style, it's really a path of transformation. So it's not easy. Some are and it was interesting because when I was appointed, I received so many messages from so many people all around the world and from the church, and not only but also many messages from priests, cardinals, bishops, who told me how they were happy to see a woman there. So there are many who are really willing that the church is doing that and calling more and more women in leadership. But it's true that also for some others, it's something new. And unless they experience the being together, sometimes it can be difficult. But what was very interesting in our assembly in October, so during 1 month at the Vatican with Pope Francis and all the delegates from all over the world, so 75% of bishops, for some it was rather new to be there in a synod with lay people, with women. But at the end, they could really see how fruitful it was and how the fact that, we have different kind of lenses and experiences, it's a richness. And
a new moment for the church.
Yes. And you are always better, as I said, when you have others who can look at things and situation and topic you have to discern with other kind of lenses. But it's a learning by doing. That's what I would like to say. And it's about opening spaces and experiences that will help this transformation.
Well, I'm glad to see you on the front line, Sister Nathalie, and I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us, and I look forward to continuing the conversation. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.